How are we doing? It's a very nice Sunday here. Spezia 0, Roma 2. And Roma take a 3 points temporarily in the fourth spot. I was just watching a very good match where Atalanta-Juventus, what a thriller that was. 3-3, that ends up. And if you missed that, I'm sure those highlights will be online soon. But just some really good overall football. And Juventus has been a conversation aside from a very good match today. And you know why. In the past week, they've been docked 15 points. That will be appealed because of Juventus's manipulation of transfer fees as well as bonuses being given to players. But how are you doing today? I hope you are enjoying your Sunday. It's a strange one here just outside of New York. It's about 2 degrees Celsius, about 30-ish, like 35 degrees Fahrenheit. And I can hear it outside my window. It's starting to like ice over, and it's very dark, very spooky right now. And if you can see, I've had some editing, revision, some work going on in my former studio, aka spare bedroom that we've got going on here. I hope you like check that out. I'm gonna post a picture of that later in the week, but I've got this Roma bookshelf and a lot of cool stuff. If you like Ferrari, I think you'll appreciate the hat on the bottom there. And what do we got? A little scarf next to it. I've got John Foot's Calcio book, which is a total must-have if you love this sport. I think you do. You can even find that for like $5 as a used book. And then I've got the book on Davide Astori, which, let me tilt this. If you could see that all the way in the back on the second to bottom shelf there, you can see his face sticking out. I've got my poster that my buddy 24 Designs made for me, the Wayne Rowe poster. And then everything, I feel like anything that's cool in my life was given to me as a gift. On the top there, I had that ceramic made by my buddy in Siena. And then on the right, my mom got that for me for Christmas. So I've got a nice little story. It's a very sentimental studio I've got going on here. However, I'm very happy, honestly. Had a nice day. It feels good to have a really positive type of Sunday heading into the week now. And I'm very satisfied with the way that Roma played. What do you think? What are your opinions after watching this one? If you are watching this live, write in your comments now. If you're watching this as a recording, just as well, write in comments. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button and all of that good stuff. Paul, nice to see you as well. And Maureen, yes, I agree. This was probably Roma's best performance of the season so far. And how do we start? And I look at this team that Spezia posted, and they're pretty good. They're a decent side. Up until today, they had only lost once on home soil. And it's because they play hard. And I thought for the first 20, 30 minutes, Spezia were playing their game, chippy, trying to control the game, the tempo, being disruptive, as well as trying to hit on the break. They have a very good keeper here in Dragovski. You know him from his time at Fiorentina. He has grown within the league over the past about half a decade at this point. Then Mattia Caldara, pretty much a proven Serie A defender at this point. He's had his injury history. And then in the midfield, we have Burabia, who gets to start, and Ampadu. I thought Ampadu had a decent game for being on the losing side. I thought he did pretty well today, and I had expected that from him. Reza, out on the left wing there, number 13, you can see on the right side of your screen in black. I thought he had a solid game. And honestly, if that shot that he had right around like the 30-ish minute mark, if that one had went in, it's a totally different ball game, right? And I feel like where he hit that ball into the stands, it got hit like at least 2 or 3 more times. So I think that the fans who were sitting in Spezia stands there got definitely more than what they paid for today. But as we look up ahead, there's another familiar name there, Daniele Verde, a player I miss very much. And I always felt that he was this creative spark. I thought he was let go of Roma a little bit too soon, whether that's because of his ambitions to go and want to play at a team and kind of just get more playing time under his boots and develop a little further. That's one thing. But I do feel always a little bit emotional when I watch him play because I think of, it would have been great to have a Primavera guy. But now he is doing his thing, and he's been in Serie A quite a while. He has been, I think, one of these guys, like I'm thinking of Alberto Paloschi back in the day, like somebody who just constantly gets put around mid-table teams. And honestly, I think he can even play on a better team than Spezia. I think he can play in the top half of the table, perhaps even like a Sassuolo type or push up to Torino. And now Spezia they're safe. I know they are in 15th position going into this one, but I do feel that they play good enough ball in order to stay into the top flight. And then, of course, you have Enzola. I'm sorry, who did not get to play. Mbaya and Zola did not get the start today. And that was surprising. I'm not sure if that was injury or what. It must have been something going on. And he was the second tied highest goal scorer heading into this match day. And out on the left, you have Gyasi, who's always dangerous, very dangerous on the counterattacks. I see a bunch of comments coming in. We've got Martino. Thank you, Martino. Appreciate that. Martino, of course, big Milan fan, but he also does a lot of work with sports betting and presenting and things like that. Very insightful Serie A character, and one definitely worth a follow if it's on Instagram or Twitter, whatever that may be, whatever you like to use, YouTube as well. And he's also a local guy, so we've got some fraternity there between him and I. Marcos checking in, says hello, hello. We were the better side today, and I agree, Paul. Q36, nice to see you. I think this is your first time. Just love the momentum, I think. Yeah, for sure. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, you're talking about my bookcase. Thank you. I'm just running through the comments real quick, and there is definitely something we're going to get to later in this episode today as I'm streaming, and that is, of course, Zaniolo. Why haven't we seen more of Volpato, especially when we're up 2-0? It could be that Mourinho is still grooming him. It could be that he wants to give El Shaarawy his run. But I think once Bove went in, that was a tactical choice. So instead of putting on a like-for-like player, Mourinho is thinking there, okay, I'm going to shore up the midfield a little bit. I'm going to control it. I'm not going to let Spezia do what they want to do, which is put players forward and be able to pass the ball and create goal-scoring opportunities. So Mourinho does well to negate any of that by making this tactical choice. But also, shout out to Bove, who has been getting a lot more time in 2023. Why did Jose say that Zaniolo isn't going anywhere? Also, I'm going to be running through Mourinho's press conference shortly after I go through some key moments. And yes, everybody likes Volpato. Yeah, he's the man. Hopefully, tomorrow we've got Milan-Lazio with Milan making the trip down to Rome. And let's take a look at some other scores. This is a good segue here. So as we could see, we've got Fiorentina losing at home to Torino. That is a shocking one. Fiorentina hitting some bad form. They ended 2022 in a decent way, but they've had their own problems. And on top of that, I had Tito from Viola Nation. I just heard some bad news coming out of SB Nation that their sites will be perhaps closing down. I don't know if Viola Nation will continue to exist. I don't know if Chiesa di Totti will either. I'm sure you're familiar with that publication. I really hope they do. It would be a shame if these groups are lost, if these writers just have to go on and start without such a decent platform that they have right now. But anyway, Verona takes it at home against Lecce. Salernitana loses the derby of the Amalfi Coast, as I've been calling it. And Napoli, of course, Osimhen perhaps coming under his transfer. Some speculation now. Very much the same type of situation that happened with Juventus. So I don't think that chapter is closed just yet, and there could be further implications for the league. Sampdoria Udinese. Udinese takes the away win. Sampdoria, I believe, still without a home win in 2023. Monza ties Sassuolo. That's an interesting one with those teams, probably within an hour driving distance of each other, maybe an hour and a half at most. And of course, Roma beats Spezia away. And let me get Martino's comment out of the way for a second. So you could see, yes, we get to Juventus 3-3. Bologna Cremonese tomorrow. Inter plays tomorrow, as does Lazio Milan. So this is an interesting match day. This is the official start of the second half of the season. We've got games on Monday and even the game on Tuesday with Lazio Milan. So that's going to be, I think, probably another marquee matchup. But I think many people are also looking forward to Juventus Atalanta, especially if you're playing Serie A Fantasy. And I'm telling you, if you're reading my stuff for the Serie A Fantasy website, I keep mentioning Lookman. You've got to get the 25-year-old in your starting lineup. He's a very good player, comes over from England. I believe he's a Nigerian international, but born and raised in England, and he's been tearing up the league. I'm not sure if he's just that darn good, or if he's thriving with Gasparini's tactics, and he's just making the most of being able to move far up the pitch as he wants to. But Lookman, definitely a player. Also, Gianluca Scalvini, I've been reading in the news today as far as his links to Inter Milan. And I think that would be a very good pickup for Inter if Skriniar does end up moving outside of the league. But for Inter's sake, I hope that he re-signs, because that would be a really big loss. And not that you never want to see, but that's not such a great situation when you have a player who's worth at least 40 million euros and he walks away on a free. You want to eliminate those types of things in your club, obviously. Okay, here we go. Comment from Paul. I heard that Napoli is being investigated like Juve, and yes, I think that this story is not closed with the Osimhen transfer here. Marco asks, what's your prediction for the next game? Napoli, can we expect anything but this anti-football? I don't think so. If I'm going to be, straight to the point there, Marco, let me get this banner out of the way so you can see the rest of everything going on here. No, I think Roma approached this with heavy lines, with not much allowed in between, compact, organized, very much the same way today. I thought Roma were very organized and allowed very little in those attacking spaces, virtually nothing. I think of Spezia's shots today, and they were from far out. They were really just a hope and a prayer. Every now and then you do get a goal like that. It changes the game on its face. However, the odds are that you're not going to score them. I absolutely think that Mourinho approaches this one with definitely just tying down the ranks, making sure that his players do not get too far up, making sure that the offense is clicking very much Catenaccio style, in the sense that it's a chain reaction, bop, 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 getting to the goal very quickly. I think that's totally going to be the modus operandi of Jose come next Sunday. And I think everybody in Serie A will be watching that one. That's going to be a screamer. And speaking of Jose, I'm going to run through the press conference right here. And yeah, Paul makes a good point. Away fans banned at Napoli and Roma for I think it's 2 months at this point because of the fan violence that they got under their skin. Under their skin. I read, as I'm narrating, I read Sharma's comment here, and I was just started laughing inside my head. Double nutmeg goal for Tammy today. Yeah, he takes it by himself, doesn't he? And as I was thinking of Scalvini, I thought he made some great interceptions today, which initiated the attack for Atalanta. And very much the same way, by being compact and concentrated, Dybala starts the second goal today. And I'll get to this key moment here. The first one is surely the goal where Dybala passes it off and makes just a fantastic play into El Shaarawy. And the second is when Tammy takes it after the Dybala interception, does double nutmeg, takes it to goal and slots it. And that's an excellent striker's goal. Really proud of Tammy right now. I will admit, I am a fan, and at times I get frustrated when my strikers missing big opportunities. How else am I going to feel? Okay, it's okay, Tammy. No, I'm like, come on. Can't you just put that one in the back of the net? Of course. I know his teammates feel the same way, and Jose feels the same way. But 2023 has been so much kinder. We see him picking up some real momentum here, really good form. He's concentrated. He's working hard for his team. He's getting back. He's not only scoring, but making goal line clearances, as we saw against Bologna the first game of 2023. He is laying it off to his teammates to initiate these counters when the ball comes deep out of the back. So Tammy has been so influential in the new year, and it's like having a different player, an entirely new Tammy, as we could say. It's a next level Tammy that we've gotten to at this point. And what I like about this picture here, right behind Sharma's comment, and thanks for checking in, Sharma, my man. If you haven't seen Sharma's new haircut lately, it's super fresh. And you could see Tammy going into the defender here, going into Caldara and holding him off. And this is exactly what you want from your centravanti, your number 9, a modern-day striker, is to be able to hold off the center back and then combine and have a really good connection with your wingers, with your wide men, with your attacking midfielder. So, bravo, Tammy. As we go on, though, I did mention that I wanted to talk about Jose's comments here because we've got some interesting stuff coming out of the tactician. So about Zaniolo, he's asked, will the special one and Roma accept Zaniolo back into the fold if he changes his mind. He said he wants to leave, but that doesn't mean he will leave. I say this because he's an important player and has an important value on the transfer market. The offers on the table are unworthy of him or the club. There's nothing out there. That is why it is my sensation he will be here in February. So a lot of people perhaps thinking that it's going to be PSG or Dortmund or Dortmund. It's probably Dortmund. My German, not so great. Or perhaps West Ham or Arsenal. One of these clubs are going to pick him up and it's just going to be done with. But it's not that simple. As I was watching the Amazon series All or Nothing with Arsenal, and you just see how oftentimes these deals come down to the wire. And if he doesn't want to be here, though, I mean, what is he going to do? Just sit on the bench for up until June? I don't think that's a likely situation either. That doesn't seem practical. And once again, he says, Zaniolo wants to leave Roma, but I get the feeling he will be here come February 1st. And guys, keep the comments coming in. I'll keep answering them for sure as soon as I run through the presser here. He had already missed the Coppa Italia win in midweek. Officially, that was due to a stomach bug, which is what I think everyone thought about or was thinking that was what happened with Zaniolo, but perhaps there was a little bit more to the story. Mourinho said the important thing today is that we won and we played as a team. I have my opinion, and my sensation is that February 1st, he's still here. He said he wants to leave, but that doesn't mean he will leave. Then he goes on to say, I play whoever deserves it. Every now and then, some injustice must be done, as today there were people on the bench who deserved to play. But I always try to do my best for the squad. If Nicolo is still with us, he will be an extra player to have. Speaking about the relationship between the two of them, he says, we have a great rapport. I always try to help him. He responds with the maximum effort. I defend those who give their best, and I will always be there by Nicolo's side. He wants to leave, and I accept that. However, where is the proposal that can give something extra to our squad? If someone leaves, someone else has to come in. If Zaniolo goes for 6 months, we won't get anything in exchange. That would be unacceptable. I am sorry also that Thiago Pinto is made to be the bad guy in this because he is not. He is just trying to defend Roma. Then, of course, Mourinho says, I read some names in the paper today, those such as Ziyech or Deulofeu from Udinese. And he says, but we're not thinking about anyone because, to be honest, I don't think anything will happen. Do I agree? I don't think that I do. And the reason why is because these things, like I mentioned, I just don't think that the club is going to allow Zaniolo sitting on the bench up until June. Perhaps this relationship can be revitalized and Zaniolo's ambitions can be reinstated and he signs a new contract and wants to stay with the club. These are all there's possibilities there, right? And nothing is done until Zaniolo either signs that new contract or waits it out and officially leaves at the end of the season. And it's a very tough situation for fans. I think it's tough for you. It's tough for me because if you are like me, you had Zaniolo's back for quite a while now and you've defended him and you've wanted to see him grow. And the fact that he doesn't want to stay for me is kind of like it's a hard one to accept because I thought that in time with his growth, he could have been a number 10. He could have been a bandiera for this club, given that he had started at such a young age with Roma. And he could have really made a career here and been a legend. And I hope that, or I want to see it resolve. I'll leave it at that. I want it to get figured out, and I don't want this to drag out for too long either way. At this point in time, guys, we have gone through the standings. We have not. And as we take a look here, Roma temporarily into the 4th spot. I like that. That's a good look for us, as we could see even level with 3rd. And actually, that's not correct because Roma beat Inter in the head-to-head. So Roma actually, I believe, should be 3rd as of right now. Unless Google is wrong, unless I'm wrong here, I believe Roma should be actually 3rd right now. Guys, let me know if I'm incorrect on this. I'm trying to figure this out, but I believe that is because Roma beat Inter head-to-head. They're equal with points. And maybe it's because Roma have played one game more. Is that the issue here? Is why it's not being counted? Perhaps. So I'm wondering if Inter lose tomorrow and it's the same number of games played, will this be updated to reflect that Roma would actually be in third. Of course, that would mean that Lazio do not get a win either. Very interesting. And nevertheless, we see Roma in fourth here. It's a beautiful thing. Of course, this comes at the hands of the penalty to Juventus being docked 15 points. Do I think that will last? Not really. I don't think so. I think maybe it gets reduced, maybe to like 6 points to be, I don't want to say to be fair, because nothing's fair about this. Juventus should be in Serie B. However, I think that because Juventus very much reflect the league on an international level, and there's a lot more that goes into this aside from just the sporting aspect, but the business side as well. Sometimes clubs and businesses get too big to fall. And I think that that will be the result of this situation, to be honest with you. I don't think we're going to see as much justice as non-Juventus fans would like. Okay, I'm going to jump into some comments here as you take a look at the standings there for a little bit. Next Sunday will be wild at the Olimpico, for sure. Why was the first good team play for a long time? Why was it good team play? I think Marco asks a really good question here. I think it's because Tammy's on his A game. He has his confidence back. He's a new guy. I think the midfield looked up for it. They knew what each other were doing. They were much more balanced. I think Zaniolo's connection with him is very good. And I also think that, don't take away the fact that they were working really hard. El Shaarawy, one of the hardest workers on the pitch today, put in a heck of a shift. Very proud of him. Zalewski also is looking back to what we know he's capable of. Getting up and down the flank, doing a really good job in that aspect. And Selic, that was Selic's best game of his Roma career thus far, no? I would say so. I thought he did really good today. And at one point in time, he almost gets in to make an assist. That should have been perhaps converted there. As well as Mancini. Great shout out, Morin. Mancini emerging as a leader within this squad. And he's been a great defender so far this season. Very proud of him. Smalling, of course, Ibanez, very little to do for them today. Adnan says Zalewski goes by himself in many chances. Yeah, there's truth to that. I think Zalewski also knows how to play the simple ball. I think that mentally he's not a finished product. I believe he's 21 years old. So Zalewski, very much so, still developing, very much so, has to find his rhythm, and that will become instinctual. By the age of about 23, I think he's going to be a really dynamite type of player out on the wing there. And also the future of this club, I think, for the outside flank. Of course, one of our Primavera products as well. Getting to a couple more comments here. HH says, Juventus and Atalanta lost 2 points today. What I care about is Juve will get the 15th point back. I guess we'll have to see about that. HH also says, Saliq broke his finger and played. I didn't know that. Good shout there. And Adnan says, Wayne, it won't reduce the points from 15 to any number. It's only 15 points to stay or take away this penalty. I've also heard this. I've heard that it's all or nothing. I'm not sure how that went through with the court system, how it is this all or nothing type of thing. But I definitely want to see how this plays out in the next couple of weeks. I want to see how the appeal process goes. If it's nothing, here's the thing why it could be nothing, guys. They're going to look at this situation with manipulating transfer fees. But what do you have as precedent? I'm not an attorney. I went to a little bit of law school. No, by no means am I an attorney. But I do understand that when courts make a decision, they have to use precedent. And if they don't have precedent, they have to make it up as they go along. There is no precedent in sporting judicial systems about transfer fees, about how a player is rated. The best thing out there, get this, is what sporting directors often use. Transfermarket.com. MARKT.com. That is what they use. How are you going to put forth as a prosecutor, oh, these are inflated transfer fees based upon my evidence using Transfer Market? And they're going to be like, what is Transfer Market? Like, oh, it's a website. Who runs it? Is it an official organization? Is it run by a government? No, it's just these guys. And they assign transfer prices. That I don't know if that's going to hold up in court, guys. And that makes me a little scared that these points could be replaced to Juventus. And that would be such a fallacy at this very moment. This is such a bad look for us. Either way, we're not in a good position on the international focus. I think fans, casual fans, look at the league after this and they're like, they really need to get their stuff in a row. And if you're a child, are you watching this? Are you watching Serie A? So there's so much to go with. Imagine you're a parent. Let me put it this way: you're a parent, you have a young child, and all of a sudden the kid's going to ask, "Why are they making monkey sounds? Why are they making ooh ah ah type sounds in the stadium?" That's a road you don't want to go down because you don't see that in the English Premier League very rarely, right? Not where a third or half of the stadium is doing it, and it's so loud. So we have so much to work on our image without Juventus getting in legal trouble and putting us in an international spotlight. So it's a very disappointing situation, for sure, Adnan. What else we got? We got a couple more. Will I be doing any more shows with other team supporters? Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna get one in with some Napoli fans, one or two this week. Absolutely. Probably Raffaele from the Raf and Raf podcast. Big Napoli fan. He's from upstate New York. And there's a couple other Napoli fans I'd like to perhaps get in the future as well. Sufyan says, even if they get the 15 points back, they've been interrupted. Napoli shook them, and now with this uncertainty, it's becoming harder for them. 2 points lost for them today. More to come, I think. Sufyan makes a good point. There's the emotional factor that has to be considered in this. And Juventus let in 3 goals today. They got killed by Napoli last week. I think they got 5 scored past them. That's 8. And the crazy thing is, 8 goals in the last 2 games. Before those, 8 clean sheets in a row. Outstanding. Max Allegri deserves definitely a lot of credit for that. But now it's very true. You see it getting to them. In what was a stonewalled defense is now leaking them in against some very, taking nothing away. These are incredibly talented attacking sides. But nevertheless, they are letting them in. And that's something which I think is a long-term issue showing here that could and is probably stemming from these legal issues. Why was Juventus Stadium half empty? That's a very good question. I have to think that it has to do with this protesting. And get this, today they were offering tickets for 15% off. Bro, 15% off after you got docked 15 points. How do you, come on, for real? Nobody caught that. None of the Juventus management, nobody in the social media team at Juventus was like, maybe not such a good discount. Maybe I don't know, just put discounted tickets or, we'll come up in shopping cart or 10%, 20%, whatever it was. Naive. Crazy stuff there from Juventus. And I laugh because what are you going to do? You're going to laugh or cry. You have to pick your battles here. And that's, they're digging their own grave, man. It's crazy stuff. Once again, top moments here for sure are the 2 goals. And on top of that, I will add that I don't want to say moment, but my biggest takeaway from here is the work that El Shaarawy put in. I thought was top notch today. And Salik, I thought these 2 guys had their best games, probably El Shaarawy in a very long time, but Salik, his best game in Giallorosso for sure. And once again, here is Mourinho's comment about players deserving it and who's on the bench. And of course, going back to Zaniolo. And we've got a couple more comments coming in. Keep them coming in. Throw some likes on there for me. Appreciate that. Send this to your Roma fans and all that stuff. I'm going to try to get here also to some player comments if I come across them. I'm just scouring Football Italia right now. And I could see even a link what Roma want from Tottenham and Milan for Zaniolo deal. So even Milan inserting themselves. I wonder if there's some truth to that. But nothing that I've heard. I don't even know if Milan would want to do that after De Ketelare, and that doesn't really make sense to me. Why would you get somebody who plays in the same exact position as somebody you just spent the majority of your summer transfer money on? Pinto had an interesting comment today that he was asked Zaniolo, and he said some players are putting their personal interests ahead of the rest of the team. Yeah, that's not a good one. But I don't see too many players. Okay, here we go. We got Matic, who spoke after the game, and he spoke to Dazn. How do you say that? DAZN. Is it DAZN? I know some of you have that as your service provider. Mourinho says often that you and Cristante, you can't play together, but when you guys are playing, you're always pretty good. Like you do it well together. And he says, I don't know that Mourinho said that we can't play well together because I always feel that I play good with him or even the other players. Our work is to win the games, and today we played well as a team. Also, Brian and I, we played good together, and we must continue so. So I'm live translating like this right now from Italian into English. So if I sound a little weird or if I sound like I'm stuttering at all, that's why. I go mail with you. Do you still have it as an objective to take Roma into the Champions League? He says, yeah, it's a very important figure for us to finish between the top four because Roma deserves to play in the Champions League. Us players know that it's very important for all of us. How have you seen the last couple hours for Zaniolo? Or how are you taking it in? He says, this question is not for me. I'm only a player of the team. It's more of a question for the manager. Of course, we talked about Mourinho's press conference today. He says, you know Mourinho very well, the interviewer says this. How is he in Rome in respect to in the past? And he says, the mister is always the same. When you win, it's easier to work with him. And when you lose, it's a little bit harder. And then he laughs. Ride. The mister is always very emotional, passionate, and Mourinho is always Mourinho. He'll never change. Some funny words there with Matic, of course, who has spent so much time with Mourinho throughout his career. Also at Chelsea, correct? I believe Matic, yeah, I'm going to double check that. But of course at Manchester United, but he also played definitely on that Chelsea team. And as I Google Matic, that's obviously perhaps a very common name. And that was in 2014 to 2017, so 3 to 4 seasons with Chelsea. And before that, even, he had the stint from 2009 to 2011. A little bit more about Matic. 34 years old at this point in time, and he actually was born in Yugoslavia before it was broken up after the war. So what do we got? A little bit about his early childhood. Yeah, so this modern-day Serbia became Serbian international, and he also received Slovakian citizenship. Interesting, while playing in Slovakia in 2007. The more you know. Let's see if I've gone through all of my banners so far today. We've got the other scores around the league. We spoke about Tammy. We didn't speak about team play so much just yet, but I think that this is just so important for us, guys. The fact that the team played so good today, everyone did their job. Everybody showed up. It was solid. It was pragmatic, not too flashy, direct to goal. It was generous. Think about Dybala's layoff to El Shaarawy. Could have shot himself for sure, but has the football IQ, the ingenuity to understand that his man, eyes and the side of his head, sees El Shaarawy streaking. We have Tammy Abraham working hard for the team. The defense, super compact and solid. The two midfielders, Cristante and Matic, playing very well as the double pivots. And then Bove being inserted at the end there, tactical decision by Mourinho. On the right, Selic, great. Zalewski, also very good and returning, or I should say, showing the next leap in his career. His growth has been very, very good. What else do we got? I think that's it as far as, well, oh gosh, what's that doing there? Who put that up? Was it you? So Paul says, if we lose Zaniolo, we lose a 23-year-old star. And that's a truth. You do lose a player with a lot of potential. Will he reach that potential under Mourinho? It's up to him, because right now, I don't see the mentality coming from Zaniolo. I see somebody getting frustrated, not knowing how to approach it in a mature manner, not really wanting to give back to his teammates, and being a distraction on a night where the team is really coming together. Should the Coppa Italia be a priority, Sufjan says. If they win back-to-back trophies, it would be a successful season in my book. I think that Roma have the chance to go and win it. I don't think that they need to. I think the team is actually quite deep with players who are eligible for the first team. If you're talking about depth as far as, like, can this team make, like, the next step up? with their depth, it's a lot of young players, and I think that they can show their potential. Get Bole in the mix, get Volpato, some players who have not played so good so far. No, I'm sorry, not gotten a lot of time so far this season. Get them into the mix. Today we see Pellegrini going out with his injury, so it's a long season. You need to mix these guys in, and I think that it'll only be good if you keep giving this opportunity. Now, is it worth playing all of your starters? That's a tough choice. I think it depends on how they're feeling on the day because it is a very long season. Roma are going against Red Bull Salzburg in the Europa League. Was that the round of 16? So there's a lot on their plate, and they're also fighting to get into fourth. Napoli, we'll see what happens with them. If Napoli get a points deduction of 5-6 points because they're found to have inflated the transfer deal for Osimhen, you never know what happens then. We'll see. That could be a super, I want to say interesting. I use that word interesting too much, though. An intriguing situation. So we'll see how that goes. Zaniolo don't want to stay. No one's forcing him. So Sufjan says Zaniolo can be a star, but he isn't unique. Better player than him will play for Roma in the future. It might be a loss, but we shouldn't claw onto him out of fear of him doing well elsewhere. You don't want to overpay when it comes to contracts. And this is where clubs find themselves in hot water. Check out Barcelona. Massive contracts, massive transfer fees, and now they're really paying the price. And they've had to restructure their club. They lose a significant amount of money each year. Not a sustainable method. And when you overpay for players who are not producing, and not showing a return on your investment, it leads to problems. And if you look at some other teams like Atalanta, they managed to stay competitive while keeping wages relatively low. And I get the impression that this is the model that the Friedkins want, that they need, or making it a necessity. And this is what Pinto has to work around when it comes to financial fair play. Interesting question from Marco here. How do you rate Deulofeu? Massive talent, man. Massive. He is. He's got some wonderful feet. He's a really good number 10. Can he work as part of a Mourinho setup? Can he be the supplier on the left and kind of the architect of the attack with Abraham ahead of him and Dybala to the right? Perhaps. I think that Deulofeu is a bit more comfortable on the right, to be honest with you, as a Ziyech. So it's an opportunity. And if Roma bought him, I would be happy. Do I think he's the ideal player to join Mourinho? He's a guy who could definitely play a big part. Last year, a very impressive season for Deulofeu. He was only moments away from joining Napoli, from what I understand. So he is a big profile and one that surely should be on a better team. I don't know how long he's going to be able to stay with Udinese. I don't think it's very long. But Udinese started off very hot and have now since come back down to earth. I know they beat Sampdoria, but big deal. It's not so great. If you work at a company and you're not doing your job correctly, you can go to HR and ask for a raise. No, of course not. That's how it goes, right? It'd be one thing if Zaniolo was, had 10 goals and 10 assists, but that's not the situation. HH says Hakim Ziyech is the ideal replacement for Zaniolo, and I cannot disagree. Ziyech is capable of some of the most difficult passes. He seems to have the eyes of a chameleon. What I really like about him is he plays low, hard balls where the defense do not expect it. Sometimes they almost even look like shots, but they're not. He can follow and read the attacker who's making that blazing run in. He can find him and get that to him on an inch perfect pass. A really unique talent that Ziyech has. Sufjan's reply here to what I was talking about. Morin makes a good shout here. Felix Guillen saving Roma once again. And after Felix takes out Napoli, he's at Cremonese now, and he's scoring some pretty good goals. And you talk about the riscatto, taking Felix back. I'm not sure what type of deal that he has there if Roma have the option. I'm going to assume that they do because it came up in the news. And could this be a left winger for Roma in the future? I think you keep him on loan one more year. If that's the case, and then you bring him back. But he is starting to really come into his own, yeah? Like, these are some awesome goals. And with young players, it's tough for them to break into the first team because, one, you have big expectations. If Felix comes into the team, he's immediately expected to play like an adult, to play like somebody who's 27, 28. But that's not realistic because he just, how old is Felix Guillon? I'm going to say he's 20 years old. Let's see real quick. 20. Yep, born 2003. So it's very good that he's out on the development right now. But sometimes players lose their way, and that's natural. And when they make the most of it, as it seems like Guillon is on the path to do, it's a great thing, no? And he does work hard. So is Dybala better wide or more in a central position or just roaming around? Dybala plays so similar to Lionel Messi in the way that, say, all of the play is on one side of the pitch. Say it's on the left. Dybala will drift away, and he'll start to like move and find his own area away from all of the attention, and suddenly he's open. And then he's got 10 to 15, 10 to 12 yards ahead of him where he can take players on and just do his thing. So to answer, I agree with HH in that he is a player who just needs to be libero, totally free. If you put him as a number 10 too, it's not like it's a rigid, he's never going to play rigid. He's always going to float around because he is so smart as a player where he can exploit those gaps. He knows exactly where he needs to be. And he's not just a system player, but he's one that you let roam free. Because for him to express his football knowledge, his just ability to think on the fly, to create, to imagine, he's a fantasista, one of the last number 10s in Italian football. Probably the last great number 10 right now in calcio. Paul says he's been to the Olimpico many times and recommend it to everyone. Yeah, for sure. The Olimpico's like nowhere else in the world. One thing that Dybala's done very well in the past couple weeks is when he drops back to collect the ball and he initiates the counterattack. We see him working hard. And one thing I've noticed also is that he makes these streaking runs. And for the first goal today, he had to try. It's not like the ball just comes to Dybala at the top of the 18. He makes 1-2 moves and he scores. No, he's been putting a lot of work in, which makes him an extremely dangerous breakthrough player. Somebody who just like out of a cannon, and he can find a way. He might not have the like sheer Olympic speed of someone like Mbappe, but his little movements, and you never know exactly which angle he's going to take. He gets defenders off their feet. He makes them unsettled. He makes them lack confidence, and they never know exactly where he's going to go. So Dybala's unpredictability means that he can play all these positions, as Marco asks here. In the end, he is a free, but because he is such a high caliber, excellent, honestly, star, he's capable of so much. It's excellent. And what would a player like Ziyech do to Dybala? Would that free him even more when you have a player that draws attention like Ziyech because they don't want to let him make those sensational passes as he does, those one touch, which puts a player into so much space just because he sees it, right? So much like how Totti used to play, where I'm not comparing the two, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying that one thing that Totti would be able to do is the ball would come to him, he'd play a no-look pass, find a guy who is completely alone, and all of a sudden the entire center of attention shifts to that guy. So they have this habit of dictating play and moving the forces around, moving the troops. So really cool stuff. Guys, I'm going to sign off just a little bit. Throw a like, comments, of course, keep them coming. Also comment on the post as well. Really appreciate that. I think all that stuff helps with the YouTube algorithm. I'm going to check on AS Roma's website also just before we head out, and send this stuff to your Roma friends, of course. Send it to your people. Also, let me know what you think I should be doing more of. I'm always interested in hearing what you have to say. What would make this better? What exactly do you want me to talk about? When it comes to transfers, I know some people have said, I really want to see transfer news. The thing is, I don't like to talk about transfer news until it's legitimate because I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to talk about tabloids. This is not a magazine where I just say, oh, that makes sense. Let's talk about, oh, yeah, no, because these things take time. And only when there is some legitimacy and they seem like they're either probable or the sporting director is talking about them, do I think it's worth taking your time. And it's very much quality over quantity. That's what I like to bring to you guys. Okay, I'm just checking. They just got some comments here, more about Mourinho. I'm going to check if there's anything else that I missed. What did you make of the game today? And I'll end probably on this. Obviously, when it's 2-0, there's always a chance for things to change. We had a bad experience last year against Juve in similar circumstances, and this year we had a good experience at Milan. A 2-goal gap does not mean the game is over. But yes, it's true that from the bench I felt quite calm. We managed the game well, we kept the ball well, and we also did a good job in transition. In that sense, it was a fairly straightforward game at a ground where it's never easy and against an opponent who can cause problems. We did a good job of taking control of the game and creating a feeling that we had control. So good to see. I like that. Mourinho says that he felt calm and didn't feel like he got upset or anything or was in trouble at any moment. Marco says, why don't you do a podcast? I've been thinking about this, Marco. I'm thinking about ripping the audio from these and putting them into a podcast because I know that not everybody has time to sit down and watch YouTube, and some people just want it on the go. I listen to podcasts all the time, so I think it's a really good idea. And I think that would be great. And thank you. I really appreciate that, my man. I really do. I thank you guys for your time. But I think that's a good idea, and I'll start to put these audio files into a podcast, and hopefully it's digestible for more people, and just keep adding to this, and start to pull people. I listen to the Sopranos podcast all the time, which actually I didn't realize until like episode 50 was actually video, and then they just took the audio and did that. Yeah. We need all the support going into next week. And like I said, upcoming, I will have Napoli fan or two, be talking about it, do a preview about the game, a bit of a breakdown, and see just exactly what Roma need to do to go and get maybe 3 points, can we hope, against Napoli. We'll see what happens. Guys, thank you so much. Let's talk soon. See you during the week. I'll have some posts. Ciao.